In this video, I'm going to show you how to factorize a quadratic equation with a number in front of the x squared. In the last video, I looked at quadratic equations where it just led with a single x squared, which would have been a little bit easier than the following quadratic equation. So we will look through these three methods, and same methods as last time. We'll open up our brackets. Method 1, we use our cross method, method 2, and then our last method will be the guide number. At the end, I will look at using the minus b formula to solve a quadratic equation, which is a little bit different to factorizing a quadratic equation, but I'll get to that at the end of the video. So first of all, we'll look at method 1. So we'll open up our brackets here. Now, this quadratic equation is not the most difficult because there aren't too many factors of the first and last number. So the first two numbers in the bracket must multiply to give us 2x squared. That must be 2x and x. Now, the second number in each bracket, they must multiply to give us 14. Our factors of 14 are either 1 by 14 or 2 by 7. So when we do this, the main difference between these and the last ones is we do have to factor in this 2x here. How will that work? So what we do is we multiply the inside two numbers, and then separately we'll multiply the outside two numbers. Okay, and when we combine the two of them, that should give us the 11x. So there's a bit of trial and error involved in this. So if, for example, I put in 14 and 1, now I want both my signs to be positive because we have plus 11 and plus 14. That would give me, so 14 times x would give me 14x. 1 times 2x would give me 2x. I'd add them up. That would give me 16x, which obviously is not the 11x there that we want. So that would be the incorrect answer. So we'll take out our 14 and our 1. Okay, and get rid of these guys down here then, and we'll try something else. So we can do a bit of a trial and error in our head. You don't need to write it all down, but if you find it tricky to do all the trial and error in your head, you can just keep writing them down and cross them off. That's not an issue. So one of the numbers is going to be multiplied by 2, essentially we've doubled. So if you think about it in our head, the only way we can get 11x is if we double this 2 to get 4, and then we add on the 7 to get 11. So if 2 is the one we want doubled, it must be multiplied by this 2 here. So we'll have to put the 2 with the x here. Multiplying 2 by 2x will give us the 4x. Then the 7 will go in here. Multiply the 7 by the x will give us 7x. Add them together and we will get 11x, which checks that we do get that middle number. So that will be our answer there, 2x plus 7 and x plus 2. Again, the order of the brackets doesn't actually matter. Cross method now, we'll look at, we set up our cross box at each end where the numbers are going to go. Again, same as in the last video, this is quite similar to the opening brackets method, just set up slightly differently. So we'll have the two numbers in these two boxes, which I put in there. They'll have to multiply to give 2x squared, so they have to be 2x and x again. Now the numbers in the box on the right must be either 1 and 14 or 2 and 7. So similar to the last time, we can do trial and error. Let's say if we put in 2 and 7, which looks quite similar to how I did the last one, but what we do in this, remember, is you multiply along the cross. So 2 by x would give you 2x, and 2 by 7 would give you, 2x by 7 would give you 14x. So 14x and 2x is not going to work to give us 11x. So again, you can do some trial and error in your head, or you can write them down, cross them off, or write them out, whichever you wish. But we should end up with the following, so 7 and 2, because multiplying here, we get our 7x, and multiplying along the other one, we will get 4x, and our 7x and 4x, when we add them together, will give us 11x. The signs must be positive in both. And then just careful when you write your answer, you don't actually go along the cross to write the final answer. You write it as the top pair together, 2x plus 7, and then the bottom pair. As I mentioned, it does not matter which bracket you put first. Okay, so quite similar to the first method. Now we'll go on to third method of the guide number. I find this one a little bit easier sometimes for these quadratic equations because there's less trial and error. Now you do have to look at a bigger number, which means we'll have more factors. Let's just get straight into it. So our guide number will be the first number by the last number. GN guide number is equal to 2 times 14, which is equal to 28. This is the only thing that's a little trickier, is you just have to look at factors of a bigger number. Now, there is a bit of grouping as we go on as well, but let's just have a look. So there are factors. Now, we don't need to do the same thing we had in the last. We have to double one of the factors as we did in the first two methods. You can just pick two factors, which when you combine them will give you 11x when you add them or subtract them. So we'll have to choose 4 and 7. They'll add to give us 11x. Now remember, with this method, there is a little bit more than after this as well, but I'd consider the next couple of steps easy enough, just a tiny bit longer. So we need to write our first bit, 2x squared, split up our 11x into 4x plus 7x, and then we have our 14 at the end. Now we use grouping, take out 2 as a common factor of the first two numbers, x plus 2, take out 7 as a common factor of the second two numbers. Now what we can do with this is we see the brackets match. Well, they would match, we wouldn't make a mistake there. That should be next 2. So the brackets should match, and then that will give us x plus 2 as our first bracket, and then the remaining numbers 2x plus 7 as our second bracket. So we get the same answer either way, whichever way we do it, obviously, but just different ways of looking at it. So I'm going to look at one more example then, just where the numbers are a little bit trickier. Now, why are the numbers trickier here? Because we have more factors of the different numbers. So we have factors of 6, we could have 3 and 2 or 6 and 1. And factors of 15, we have 2 pairs of factors for them as well. So let's go through these one by one again. So we open up our brackets here. Again, 2 terms in each bracket. Now, this time we'll have to look at the factors of 6 as well as the factors of 15. So we've 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. Factors of 15, we have, let's see, 1 times 15 and 3 times 5. So trial and error involved. So let's just say we choose 6x and x as our first numbers in each bracket. They combine to give us the 6x squared. Now we can see, can we choose 1 and 15, 3 and 5? So let's say I put in just one example, 1 and 15. Then I multiply here, I get 1x here. Okay, that's going to give me 90x. So that's definitely not going to work. So 1 and 15 won't work. Well, we could, swapping them around would change it. Just careful that we don't just discard it completely there. So if you choose 15 and 1, that would give you different numbers. You'd have 15x and 6. Now, it still won't work. So then we can try 3 and 2. So again, you can do these in your head, or you can do them by writing them out. So that will give you 3x in the middle and 12x on the outside. That won't work. What if I was to swap them around? So then we would have 2 and 3. That will give me 2x and 18x. That's not going to work either. So just do that in your head. So that means that 6x and x actually isn't going to work. So we must then try 2x and 3x. So 2x and 3x. And now let's see which ones we can use out of our 1 and 15 or our 3 and 5. So if I was to choose, again, say 15, 15 is probably going to multiply to give us something too high. 15 times 3 would be 45, or 15 times 2 would be 30. So I'm going to try 3 and 5 here first. So let's say if I was to put in here 3 and 5 here, let's see, does that work? So that will give me 9x here from the inside 2, and it would give me 10x here from the outside 2. Now, can that combine to give me plus x? Yes, because if we make it a minus 9x and a plus 10x, that would combine to give plus x. So now we have to be careful with our signs to make sure we can make this happen. So minus 9x means you would need a minus 3 there, whereas a plus 10x means you need a plus 5 here. Then we should also check with this sign at the end, the minus. Does that work? So yes, it will, because you have a minus times a plus, which will give you the minus 15. So our answer for this then would be, so the answer would be 2x minus 3 and 3x plus 5. Okay, so the number is a little bit trickier. Now let's look at the cross method. So there are 4 boxes. Now it's going to be a little bit easier one because I know the answer, but I'm going to try the 3x and the 2x straight away. And this is obviously going to work a little quicker, but it is still going to be trial and error. Let's say I tried 15 and 1. Remember, you would multiply along the cross. So 2 by 15 would give you 30x, and then the other one, 3 by 1, would be 3x. So that can't combine to give us a total of plus x. So again, trial and error, either writing them down or doing them in your head. We'll see that we want to choose 5 and 3. Let's say if I chose 3 and 5 this way. Now, along the green line, that will give me 6x. Along the blue line, that will give me 15x. So that wouldn't work. Remember, as I said, the order of them will change things. So if I was to put a 5 here, a 3 here, now this should work because I should get 9x this way, okay, and 10x the other way, which means that we're going to combine to give our plus x. Again, careful with the signs. It's going to have to be, the bigger one's going to be plus, so you're going to have plus 10 minus 9. And again, we can check, does that work to give minus 15? A positive multiplied by a negative will give us a negative, so that's good. And again, with the cross method, just remember to write your answer as this and then this. So we have 3x plus 5 and 2x minus 3. Okay, so same answer as last time. And then third method, which will look a little different. Again, we just have a bigger number to get factors of, but should reduce the trial and error somewhat. So you have our guide number is 6 times minus 15, which is minus 90. So I'm just going to look at the factors of 90, and then we'll consider the sign in a second. So factors of 90, it's going to be quite a few. So you have 1 by 90, then let's say 2 by 45, 3 by 30. So we can use a calculator if we want these. So 4 won't go in. How many times will 5 go in? So we have 5 times, that's 18. And then does 6 go in? So 6 will go in 15 times. 7 won't go in, 8 won't go in, 9 will go in 10 times. So there are all the pairs of factors. That might be take a little bit longer to get all them factors. We can check it using a calculator. But once we've done that, it becomes a good bit easier to pick out which ones will we choose. So they need to combine to give plus x, okay? So they either need to add to 1, which obviously won't be the case, or differ by 1. So we're going to choose the 9 and 10 because they have a difference of 1. And now we did want minus 90, which means one of them is going to have to be negative, have to be a minus 9, because minus 9 plus 10 gives us the plus 1x that we want. So we can then write our quadratic equation as 6x squared minus 9x plus 10x minus 15. So a little bit less trial and error in it. Then we'll group it. And 3x goes into this. How many times? 2x minus 3. And then plus 5. And how many times does that go in? Hopefully the same. 2x minus 3. The brackets match, which means our final answer is 2x minus 3, 3x plus 5. So you can do these quadratic equations whichever way you want. Personally, if the factors are tricky, I like to use a guide number method. If they're easier, then I might use one of method 1 or 2, as they can be a little bit quicker. Okay, but less trial and error involved in the third method. Now, I'm going to show you one other thing then, which is solving a quadratic equation. Okay, a little bit different to factorizing because we have this equals 0. Solve, remember, means you want to get x equals and y equals. Now, whatever way you want to factorize, I'm just going to take my factorization from up there. So factorize in whatever way you want, except now we have an equals 0. So it's just one extra step if you need to solve. So what we'll do with this is we can say that if two things multiply to give you 0, the only way that's possible is if one of them is 0. Okay, so we can say that 2x minus 3 equals 0, or 3x plus 5 equals 0. Now with this then, we'll just solve for x. So 2x equals 3, x equals 3 over 2. And in this case, 3x equals minus 5. So x equals minus 5 over 3. So they are our roots of the quadratic equation. That is solving the quadratic equation. Okay. So if x equals 3 over 2 or x equals minus 5 over 3. If you're asked to solve, there is one other method we can use. Okay. So if you're asked to solve a quadratic equation, you can use the minus b formula if you do not need the factors. Okay. The factors will sometimes be necessary, but if you're only asked to solve and you want to just go straight into a formula, we can use our minus b formula. So what I've written on the right hand side is what's in your formula book. So we have our minus b formula there, and it also does give you this bit on the side. So ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. That just kind of helps us picking out what a, b, and c are. So if I put that underneath our quadratic equation here, which is the same quadratic equation as above. So ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. We can pick out our a. Now, careful, if it's just a single x, remember that that's 1. Okay, some people put that in as 0 sometimes. That would make it 1. So we have a, b, and c there. So let's see, can we solve this using that formula in the top right there? So we have x equals minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now, what you can do is you could actually throw this all in the calculator in one go if you really wanted, but just to avoid errors as much as possible, I probably wouldn't put it all in. You can if you want, but what I will do is I'm going to put, because this is where the most common error will be, I'm going to put this whole thing in the calculator. Okay, now you could do that out manually, it wouldn't actually be too difficult, but if I put that whole thing in the calculator there, let's see what you'd have. So you'd have, well, the minus by minus would be a plus, so you'd have 4 by 6 by 15, which is 360. So then you'd have 1 plus this, and then we take the square root of that. So it's going to be equal to minus 1. I won't take the square root yet, but it's plus or minus the square root of 361 all over 12. Okay, now the square root of 361 is just 19, I think. Yeah, so 19. So we can then say that this is equal to minus 1 plus or minus 19 over 12. Now you will need to use the minus b formula if you have irrational solutions or decimal solutions. So if you have to round your solution to a certain decimal place, it's going to be a case where you have to use the minus b formula. In this case, this quadratic equation, you could factorize and solve or use the minus b formula. So let's just finish it off. We look at the plus and the minus separately. So let's look at this. Minus 1 minus 19 over 12, which is minus 20 over 12, which will simplify to 10 over 6 or 5 over 3. Okay, or else you could have minus 1 plus 19 over 12, which is 18 over 12, which simplifies down to 3 over 2. Okay, so there are two solutions to that quadratic equation. I'm going to jump back up and make sure they're the same as the last ones, which they should be. 3 over 2 and minus 5 over 3 as we have above there. Okay, so same solutions either way. We can only use the minus b formula if you want to solve the equation though. So 3 methods for factorizing plus 1 extra method for solving. One little note on that as well, which I mentioned there, is you will have to use the minus b formula if you get irrational roots. Okay, so you could get ones which don't factorize nicely and you may have to use the minus b formula. It might say in the question, give your answer to a certain number of decimal places or give your answer in surd form. They would be hints that you would have to use the minus b form.